The tea industry is full of so many people that are passionate about giving you the best cup of tea. But what kind of jobs are out there? How do you break into this industry? And is having a love of tea enough?
The world doesn't need more tea geeks. It needs people who understand the business of tea.
That's William Dietz, aka Billy, author of the book Spill the Tea. Billy has been in love with the tea industry since he first learned about the health benefits of tea back in high school.
You can decide to brew your straight tea or blended tea however you want, as much water, whatever temperature, cold, hot. Like the customization, I think from the user perspective, abounds in tea, and that's really one big differentiator.
Billy has over 15 years of career knowledge, which he has amassed from his time as a tea blogger, a tea entrepreneur, working in product development at DavidsTEA, and he is now currently working as an independent tea consultant. So in this episode, you'll learn from Billy's career journey into the tea industry, the differences between blended and single origin teas as outlined in his book, Spill the Tea, fostering a sense of continuous learning, and problem-solving techniques which are pivotal for his consulting pursuits in the tea industry, and advice for those looking to go into the tea industry. I'm your host, Veronica, and here at FoodGrads, we're here to remind you that there's always something for everyone in food, and we'll help you find it. This episode of the podcast is powered by Careers Now. Careers Now is Food and Beverage Ontario's multi-year workforce development initiative that is connecting students and job seekers with employers in Ontario's food and beverage processing industry for exciting career opportunities. Check out careersnow.ca for more information on exciting jobs, career information, industry mentors, and training opportunities for professional development. Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited about it. I read through the book actually quite fast. I've always been I think I kind of now can say I've been a tea drinker for a while since high school, but I haven't really dived into the blended teas as much as I should. This had a little bit of opinions with it, but I'm not going to lie, your book kind of brought some perspective to it, and I'm going to give it a try.
Amazing. I'm happy to hear that. It's an amazing industry, no matter what side of the coin you are on the tea industry. I think it's vital to know all of the facets, because ultimately we're all in the same game.
Sounds like it. Well, I think it's best if you introduce yourself. So would you be able to introduce yourself to everyone?
Absolutely, Veronica. Thanks so much. My name is Billy Dietz. I am a tea obsessive turned career, and I've been in the tea industry now for 15 years and won't look back. Really focusing on blended and flavored tea is only one facet of my goal and my mission in the tea world. Ultimately, what I want to do is bring awareness and raise tea consumption in North America in general, to bring it to where I think it should be, which is right at the top spot. So
I could agree with you in terms of that. I'm not a coffee drinker, just couldn't get into the taste. But tea, there's such a beautiful world when it comes to it, and there's something for everyone. So I would love to dive into your story and tell how you got into tea, because I think a lot of people would think, oh, that's pretty cool. Like you started pretty early on in this tea world.
Yeah, I can definitely dive into this. It's a story I've shared many times, so happy to share again, but maybe with a new perspective. So I entered the tea industry actually through being a hobbyist. I was a blogger, or started out as kind of a blogger and enthusiast when I was quite young. I was 15 years old and had a lot of support from my parents, which I dive into in the book. But basically, they just said, hey, listen, like you're really interested in this tea thing. You actually seem to be quite serious about it. What about taking some professional education? And I thought, yeah, absolutely. So at the time, there was a subset of the Tea Association of the US called the Specialty Tea Institute, which is now defunct, although there are other educational programs out there for tea. But this was one that was pretty highly regarded. And so I ended up taking those classes up until I was 17 years old, and I had completed the curriculum. At the time, I was the youngest to complete the curriculum, which was kind of a cool feeling. Yeah. But in any case, a tea career only goes so far when you just have tea knowledge. One of the big takeaways from my mentor, who I met during the tea classes, he said, the world doesn't need more tea geeks. It needs people who understand the business of tea. And he's not downplaying the importance of tea knowledge. You need tea knowledge to be in the business. However, tea is just like any other industry where you also need to bring in other skills to that world to help make the business more successful. So you can think anything business related, data analytics, marketing, accounting, like all the normal things that a business needs to function. So does a tea business. And I think that was a big revelation for me. And I realized I needed some adjacent skills. So I went to university and I wasn't much of a, I wasn't much of a bookworm. I was very much someone who needed to get my hands dirty in order to learn. And so very fortuitously, there was a student who was he a year above me? He was a year above me at that time. And he had opened a tea business. And so I ended up working out a deal, purchased the tea business, ran that company throughout university, as well as helped start and operate a coffee company. We ended up merging those together. But anyways, it was a very hands-on way to get some understanding of the business world, but really kind of in the weeds, which I needed. Nothing theoretical. It was all, okay, let's actually apply this to what I'm doing. And then when I graduated, I was looking for jobs. I knew I didn't want to stay around the area where I went to university, which was in the Midwest in the US. And my mentor reached out to me and he said, hey, I've got an opportunity if you're okay to move to Canada. I've been applying like mad for roles that summer and ended up scoring a job with DavidsTEA. And I started, that was early 2015, moved to Canada, still reside in Canada. And yeah, that was kind of a brief of my journey in the tea world. And with DavidsTEA, it was really the job focused on product development for that brand. However, it bled into a lot of other areas of a business, as you can imagine.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, you started your career in the tea world quite early, and it's amazing how something as simple as blogging and then having the support from your parents can really, like, you've been touched by so many amazing people, it seems, along the way to really help forge that.
Oh, yes. People and building a network, I think, is essential. There's so many people that I could spend the hour listing people that have helped me get to where I am. And so they're a big component of what I also want to do for the tea world is give back, which is also part of the book. There always needs to be a give back and to continue to help others grow in the industry, because ultimately that's going to make everyone successful.
Absolutely, for sure. So going through the journey and such, and you took these tea courses, what was it that really, you said that, yes, it's important to have a knowledge of the tea, but then going into the depths of the industry and such, what was it that made you stay once you saw that other side that of just, oh, not tea is just cool, but, oh, I like this industry as well?
The people.
Okay.
100%. It was the people. The product is amazing. I love the product. But you can like a product only so much, and if you get in the industry and you realize, oh wow, these are just a bunch of sharks, it's not that pleasant, I think, to work in. And tea is the complete opposite of that. And I think for me, building those networks and relationships and realizing, oh wow, these people actually care about me beyond just the business part of it. Although of course that's, you know, a big piece of why our relationship was built, but it's not what's going to sustain the relationship per se. They're very genuine. I get photos of other tea companies, their sales representatives, like their kids, you know, them having Christmas dinner. Like, hey, Billy, here's a photo of us having Christmas dinner, and oh, you know, my son or daughter got an award for this, or so it's a very personable industry if you make it that way, and if you're open to that, and those relationships can lead a very long way and lead you down a very good path.
I have to totally agree, at least with the food industry in general. I know many individuals that I meet in one area and then they're in another company, but then I'm still saying hi to them. And it's just like this really nice relationship. And every time you go to a networking event, it's just like meeting old friends in a weird way. So I really enjoy that aspect about it.
Yeah. It's nice, and I'm glad to hear also that other industries, and like you said, especially in more the food and beverage world, seem to be along those lines. So that's nice.
Yeah, and I think it also speaks to just how tea is as a just something that's incorporated in life. I think that, when I think of even if my day is really bad, I can come home and just have a good cup of tea and it can make everything a little bit better.
Oh yeah, it's the cherry on top of the sundae.
Absolutely. And I definitely want to start segueing into this, as I alluded to a little bit earlier, in that you authored a book, Spill the
Yes.
Tea, where you explored different blended teas, herbal teas, and very good book. So tell me, how did that idea come to be?
Well, first and foremost, thank you, A, for purchasing the book. B, thank you for that you actually enjoyed the book. I'm very happy. Maybe off topic or off air if you have any actual critiques. I always like to learn from critical feedback, so please don't hesitate. But in any case, yeah. So the book really came about because when I did enter the blended and flavored tea industry, I learned through experience, which is a great way to learn. But I was pinging my mentor. I was scouring the internet. I said, what resources are there to learn about this side? There's great resources and great books on single origin teas and classic teas and healthy herbal blends and
Mm-hmm.
mixes. And there's a lot of great resources. But in this facet, I found that there was really nothing published. And I think I realized that I can't be the only one that's looking, or that in the past was looking for this information. And so I thought, well, someone has to do it. And I guess I know enough people to put together something that it's at least is a good primer. And so that was really the goal, was to be a concise primer on the blended and flavored tea industry, and really opening the back doors and exposing and kind of showing people what it's about. Not that the industry is secretive. That's not at all the case. It's
Mm-hmm.
just no one had taken the time to put it into a book. So everyone in the industry is very open and very happy to share, and work with you to learn. But having a baseline amount of knowledge, I think goes a long way. And it's the book that I would have really clung to when I just started. So that's what I wanted to give back.
Well, let's take a step back and talk about blended teas, because we've kind of been navigating around what that terminology is. So just
Yeah.
for those who might not be fully aware, what are some of the other types of teas in terms of single origin, and then what is blended tea?
So I we'll let's how do I say it? Let's move forward with my book definitions, right?
Okay.
Terminology can be a little bit clouded and people have a lot of opinions. For the sake of this discussion, we'll go with a couple different terms. So the first term that is pretty generally accepted is straight tea. Straight tea is defined as being an infusion made from exclusively the leaves of the Camellia sinensis plant. And that is all. This would include everything from your really high-end single origin, Chinese white teas, all the way down to your English breakfast, which is a combination of different Camellia sinensis leaves. The confusing part for a lot of people is that they'll say, oh, well, these English breakfast or those kind of things are technically blended. Yes, they are. You are correct. They're blended. But for the sake of argument, they still contain only Camellia sinensis. So for the purposes of this book and how I define, that falls under the category of straight tea. Then you have this category of tea where it can be a mixture of fruits, spices, flavors, herbs, flowers, any kind of botanical under the sun, with also an introduction potentially of liquid flavoring or solid flavoring that can or may not include tea. i.e. Camellia sinensis. And I use the terms blended and flavored tea interchangeably to describe that category in the book.
Okay. Wow. Well, I mean, I know I did read that in the book, but for those that were listening, I think that was a really good, I guess I want to take like a quick second to just talk about how this, so it would have been really nice to know like earlier on for me, because I know when I first was, when I got into tea myself in high school, I was using it as an alternative not to drink pop. I still am a very big pop drinker. I'm not going to deny that for a second, but I wanted an alternative that wasn't just drinking soda all the time. So I remember that my high school science teacher brought mint leaves from her garden and just made mint tea for everyone in the class. And I was like, oh my God, like that's amazing. Like it's just mint, but it tastes really good. And then that pushed me to go to just the mall. And at the time here in Canada, the primary place you could go in the mall was Teavana, I think it was prior. And then that was purchased out, or was it Teopia to Teavana?
Yeah, Teopia to Teavana, to Starbucks.
To that. And when when eventually DavidsTEA came out, I was like, wow, like there's so many different ways that tea can be looked at. And I started to really explore. And I really started to fall in love with the Japanese style teas during that time. Something about I heard the term astringent is the one I'm looking for, apparently tastes really good. So I started to fall in love with that. But seeing how many different options there were in tea, that you could have something for breakfast, that you can have something for any time, it's really lovely.
Yeah. Tea fits all moods, all flavor preferences, all times of day. There's really something to fit in with your lifestyle, not only in flavor, but also in brewing technique. It's very customizable, tea. And I think one of the big differences between tea and other beverage is that level of customization. So I like to compare, to the other kind of beverages that fall in the same category of coffee and wine, right? Coffee is you can prepare coffee in many different ways at home. However, typically people don't roast themselves. So you're a bit locked in with whatever the purveyor decides is that roast level that you want. And okay, that's great, but it is one facet of customization that you lose. With wine, you open the bottle and then you drink it. Everything is kind of done for you. Yes, you have temperature control and a few other variables, but other than that, you don't have much. Tea, you have almost infinite customization on the user end. Of course, you can do this with coffee, but you can, blend a fruit tea with a straight tea. You can decide to brew your straight tea or blended tea however you want, as much water, whatever temperature, cold, hot, over ice, mix it in cocktail. Like the customization, I think from the user perspective, abounds in tea, and that's really one big differentiator.
That's a really good point. My mind was blown when I figured out a kettle could have different temperatures on it, and it actually made a difference to how it tasted.
Especially if you're brewing Japanese greens.
Yes, I learned that. And then when I went from from 100 degree to a 70 degree, and I went, oh gosh, this actually makes a difference. And I felt like a little bit of a tea snob after that, but I was like, oh, but it just can't go back.
No. Once you get that first magical sip, and then all of a sudden it snowballs into obsession that you can't control. So welcome to the club, Veronica.
I'm glad to be here. I think my lab's also getting converted as well. We had a tea party yesterday because our tea drinkers are starting to try to convert the coffee drinkers into drinking more tea. So
incredible. I love that.
But with your obsession with that, what was it about blended teas that started to really perk your interest maybe a little bit more than the other ones?
I'm a proponent of tea in all forms, first and foremost. I love and started out actually in the camp of only drinking straight tea and only drinking single origin. I didn't really consume personally a lot of blends, and actually still don't personally consume a lot of blends, which I think might be surprising. However, I understand the value of flavored and blended tea in the tea industry and for new tea customers. And I think that was a big eye-opening experience, as you realize, wow, you have this gateway that can introduce so many people into the tea world, whether or not it's the high-end single origin stuff that they end up moving to is irrelevant, because ultimately someone drinking tea is adding to the overall tea market. And so that was my big eye-opening thing, is I said, wow, all of a sudden we have this product that's amazingly inclusive. It brings a wider variety of people into tea consumption. And I think that was especially necessary in North America. North America does not have a long history of tea consumption. And so to have this product that can introduce more people was beyond me. I just thought it was something we have to invest in and have to learn about. The other part of me and reason why I like it is I'm definitely a flavor nerd, a flavor geek. I'm in the kitchen all the time, tasting and trying different flavors, products, combinations, seeing what's good, what's bad. And blended tea offers so much variety in that aspect, because you get to play with more ingredients as well as liquid flavoring. And so you don't only have, oh, this is a fruity tasting green tea. It's, oh, you can make a cotton candy flavored fruit blend. And how cool is that? That's just fun.
Yeah.
I think that's just incredible.
You say that. That was actually exactly one of the funnest teas. I love cotton candy, even though I know you're not getting it in nature. But oh my God, if I can have a rooibos with cotton candy tea, it's so fun.
Well, and how fun. And it brings a smile to your face. And what's not to love about that?
Exactly. Yeah, I love again, I moved to the more single origin ones, but it's fun to talk about the single origin, but having a cotton candy tea, like that's a conversation starter. Or when there was the DavidsTEA, there was gummy bears in the Halloween blend. So
oh yeah.
I don't know if you're smiling because you were the one who worked on that one, or if you know who was involved in that. But I think that was one thing that you pointed out there that I think brings to I like your opinions on, and that was one of the things I appreciated in the book, was just the fact that tea can be for everyone, and that we shouldn't gatekeep certain things. Like if one person enjoys it a certain way, we shouldn't necessarily say that's wrong or that's a wrong way to do it, because everyone has their own ways. And what really particularly stood out was the individuals who might drink that bagged tea. And I think you spoke about this in one of your latest posts on LinkedIn, was that there's nothing necessarily wrong with the individual who likes to drink their breakfast tea every single morning, even though to some it might not be seen as a high quality tea. If they enjoy it, then is that a bad thing? No.
Of course not. Ultimately, a consumer needs to be happy. And in my opinion, I think it's better for the industry that the consumer is happy drinking tea in whatever form that may be. So ultimately, there's no bad tea. And that's definitely one of the first things that I hammer home in the book is that truly there isn't a bad tea, as long as it fits with what the customer is looking for, what the customer wants and likes, and is satisfied with. Then by all accounts, it's a good tea.
Absolutely. So when you were designing different teas and even working with different teas, we think about the consumer in mind, but how was that process of actually making a blend? Or like how did you're coming up with the next blend, like what was the process to get there?
Oof, a very fun question. There were definitely several avenues. The one that's the easiest to understand is, and probably the simplest to I'll say get out of the way first, is that the merchants or buyers for a company would say, okay, we need this type of blend, this type of flavor or concept to fit within a certain campaign or category that we want to launch. Okay, so that's one. You have sort of a directive that you can follow, and you kind of know what the end result is going to be. So that's one. That was one way. The way that was I think the most fun, at least for me, and ultimately I think the most creative, was the very organic method of coming up with blends. So what we followed at DavidsTEA, at least while I was there, was this concept that we like to say trend to blend. And what we mean by that is we would really follow what's happening in the food and beverage industry across category. So not just looking at other teas, other companies, we were really looking at who are the first movers on a certain flavor for beverages, for snacks, confections, high-end restaurants, fast casual restaurants. What do their menus look like? What kind of accent herbs and spices are they using? Is it fruit and spice combo? Is it florals? So all of these things would come to mind, and we were very purposeful and boots on the ground to understand what's happening in the food and beverage scene beyond tea, because tea ultimately, at least for now, is a slow moving category. They're not one of the first usually to adopt different various trends. And so what we aimed to do was take and funnel down some of those trends into blends that we thought would be saleable for a customer. So that was one of the most fun organic ways of developing, and we would taste thousands of blends a year.
Sounds like a dream job for a lot of people.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was a very demanding job, but it was good experience, and really it put you through the ringer, because we were tasting on average about maybe 2,000 blends a year at least.
Oh my gosh. Oh.
Yeah, and giving comments, feedback, understanding different supplier toolkits, how flavors interact, what kinds of flavors we thought, because a pineapple is not a pineapple. There are hundreds of different variants of pineapple that you can use. So, okay, what works with your market? Those were the kind of questions that we were really tackling and really honing in and fine tuning with the supplier base that we had at that company.
I find it interesting that with you have the tea geek side, and it sounds as though a lot of your knowledge though is a very scientific, like more on the science side. So I would think that you would have a background more in like the chemistry. So like when I was reading the synthetic section or the flavors, I kind of knew just from my own personal experience. But you went to school for business marketing. Like where did you start to pick up all this knowledge? I know you did your tea courses, but you had to keep learning as you went along. So where were you picking up this knowledge?
Yeah, of course. Well, a lot of it was just various suppliers and their ingredients. So they have different backgrounds. Some of the suppliers come from food science. Some come from more of a classic tea background. Some come from other food industries and find their way into tea. We actually had one. I remember working with one person in research and development and product development for this company who came from the airline industry. But they're like food service.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So there was a wide background of people, and I think each one brought their own level of expertise. But at least for me, I wanted to dive in and learn, of course, as much as I could. So no, I don't actually have a science background at all, but I was able to take some professional development courses through a company called FONA, now called McCormick FONA or McCormick Flavor Solutions. It's a company that was purchased by McCormick. They offer, and I think still do, a program called Flavor University. And it's a course intended to demystify and help educate their own customers about what flavoring is, how it's used, the different applications for flavor. And these courses, they're actually free as long as you are an industry professional. This company's based out of Chicago. It's a suburb of Chicago. So when I was in university, I actually went and attended these flavor courses, which was wonderful. I absolutely loved it. It gave me a great background. So I know just enough to be dangerous, but not enough to be a food scientist.
Well, as long as you can balance the line, if it works for you, that's the important part. Oh, I'm a little jealous because that is one thing that I want to do when I graduate, like when I have more time to actually focus. I'd love to like take some sommelier courses or like take something related to tea, because I just want to learn more. Like it's so cool.
The best advice I can give you is just keep drinking more. That's the best advice. Sommelier courses are great, and having someone lead you through tea and gain an understanding with a helping hand is wonderful. my baseline level of education came from scouring the internet, reading blogs, reading every single book that I could get my hands on, and just constantly drinking and experimenting with brewing tea. That was really the best education I think you can possibly get, because there is so much out there that's available and free. You have to weed through some of the not so accurate stuff, but always be cross-referencing, always be reading, and dare to, how do I say this? Don't take everything for face value. Tea is not so straightforward. So
like
dare
that.
to doubt and continue to dig.
I like that. Well, as you say that, in a funny way, it kind of reminds me of how I'm doing my PhD. Like, I'm not getting courses every day on how to do emulsions. Like, a lot, pretty much 90% of it is going out into the books, discovering on your own, formulating your own thoughts or something. So it's not a start, aside from running the experiments, it's not a far stretch from getting your own PhD, just self-learning online.
There you go. I mean, you can learn anything on YouTube. My dad was telling me before, he's like, oh yeah, I took the whole front panel off of my car. I just watched a YouTube video.
I know.
He's not a mechanic.
That's so, I know, exactly. It's learning how to podcast, I have not taken a single course on like how to run video things. I was learning how to like edit audio the other day, and I'm like, YouTube it is, because it's such good quality. I mean, of course you have to sift through it, and it is becoming a little more difficult with it can become more difficult, but it can also be more beneficial with all the AI that's coming out in terms of like all the searching and all that. But learning how to effectively search is such a viable skill nowadays that it's you think with so much information out there, it would be easy to find everything, but actually the skill is being able to sift through the information.
Oh, that is 100% accurate. And sifting through and understanding what's accurate and what's not, 100%. Well, and it's an interesting segue, because in my book, you will have noticed that it's not just me talking and sharing the knowledge that I have. What I really wanted to do is showcase industry experts. So each chapter, and it's broken up, has one or several people who are experts in their own field in the tea industry or flavor industry, to help explain some of those concepts. And those people definitely have the certification and the experience to merit them being interviewed for something like this.
Absolutely. And the chapter that stood out the most in respect to that was just the commodity. Like, tea is a commodity, despite it's funny that we speak about like single origin and all that, but then it is sometimes it's sad, but it's categorized over the commodity. And I wanted to know, like, how do they make teas taste pretty relatively similar? Like, you go purchase your mint tea, and to be honest, it tastes pretty similar each time. There might be a difference, but honestly, I wouldn't even notice. So like, how does the industry do that?
There's no replacement for the human tongue when it comes to tasting. And so really, it's a matter of having checkpoints throughout the supply chain. So, I don't know. Well, let's do a run through example. You develop. So as a buyer, I need a black tea from Sri Lanka, or at least that tastes something similar to Sri Lanka. And again, there can be a lot of different tastes of Sri Lanka, but for the purpose of simplicity, let's say that. Right? Okay. I need something that tastes kind of ish like Sri Lankan black tea. Okay, wonderful. Well, there was not a great harvest. It was a little too rainy in the region, and so Sri Lanka didn't produce as much. So I don't know if we can buy any. So okay, the buyer says, well, what else do you have that's similar in that? Oh well, we have a South Indian tea that tastes a bit similar and should be up to your standards. Okay, great. Let's send that over. They taste, they compare with what they have on file and say, oh, you know what? Okay, the delta of difference is acceptable for us. We think that it'll still meet our customer demands. And so we can use that in place of this Sri Lankan tea. So that's one way that you can do it is really just by tasting and finding something that is similar. There there are a lot of other ways,
Yeah.
because there are a lot of other checkpoints
Of course.
down the line, and the more that you blend, the more that you can actually counter some of the seasonal variances and changes. So, for instance, let's talk about a commodity tea bag, just some straight black tea bag, generic brand. There could be up to 20, 30, 40 different teas in that tea bag easily. And the reason
Wow.
being is so that you can replace if you have a shortage. So you say, well, okay, this tea that I usually use for color, I wasn't able to buy at the right price, but I have this other tea that gives a really nice dark color that I can use in its stead. And this also applies to herbs, fruits, everything else. Consistency is going to be the number one reason why customers come back, aside from just the taste, the base taste, but you need that to be consistent. Like, if you have a favorite restaurant and you love the chicken parmesan at this restaurant, well, all of a sudden, what if on the menu they're like, well, we didn't have chicken, so we used eggplant. And you say, well, I don't really want an eggplant parmesan. I wanted a chicken parmesan. Consistency is everything in customer retention.
Of course. And I love how you brought it right at the beginning. It's just being able to taste and like having that master blender, and it just really demonstrates the craftsmanship that goes into it, and having an individual who's picked up so many years of knowledge or picked up the taste, and just being able to do that, I just think is so respectable. It's so cool. And it's not a place you might think of to have someone who's a craftsman. You would think of it as like a sculptor or someone who's an artist, but blending teas is an art.
Oh, yes. It absolutely is. There's no doubt about that. And as much as for now, people want to push, artificial technology, and even in this space, there is no sense like the human olfactory system when it comes to identifying these discrepancies and these differences. And the other thing too that I want to dive into is that, talking to a lot of people that are new to the food industry, they think, oh, well, you need some kind of special gift to be able to do this. No, you don't. You need training. Anyone can be a taster. You just need to be able to train effectively. That's it.
I think a lot of people listening will really like to hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing the things that you would never think possible that you could be able to do, but over the years you can train yourself. It's like public speaking for some people. They could start off being terrified of it, and then there's tons of people who are like now professional speakers on air, and you would never think that they started off in that position. So I guess it goes to show that your taste is not too far off from that as well.
No. It's just about being aware. And I think that's the biggest piece for a lot of people is you just need to build awareness. That's all. Just be mindful. Like, in a very easy way for someone to start, just take a moment before you eat something or drink something, look at it, smell it again, think about what you're smelling, and then mindfully go and eat and taste, and each component, how they react together. Just being very mindful is an amazing way to start, and actually I think is one of the very first eye-opening experiences is just thinking about what you're consuming. That'll bring a whole slew of other benefits, and I think would be very surprising for those who think, oh, well, I can't be a taster. I don't really taste things. Well, of course you do. Yeah, you do. I mean, unless you have some genetic disposition in that you don't, and maybe you don't have taste buds or your olfactory system doesn't work. Okay, that's a different story. But the majority of people do have the ability to taste and smell in some capacity. And smell as well is one of the most acute senses, because it's the only sense that doesn't have to pass through some kind of a barrier to get to your brain. It's pretty much a direct line into your brain. And there's a very good biological reason for that. is because smell is ambient, of course. And so you need to pick up on things quickly. So there's no filter when it comes to smell. It's like nose to brain is pretty much what it is.
As you're saying that, I'm like mentally going through my senses. I'm going, oh yeah, he like that makes sense. And it's in part, I think it's like why you can smell something burning really quickly before you could even perceive where it's even coming from.
Exactly.
And this sounds as though the way that you're speaking, this sounds as though it's almost like the foundation of your creativity, because the way you were speaking, it's like, well, if I think about what I'm having first, that's starting to lead. I can start to think about, oh, how does this combine with this? This combines with this.
Yeah, that's it. Just being aware and knowing, and again, knowing not what tastes good to you. Well, if you're working in a business, you need to be objective. That's one thing. If you're tasting for yourself, doesn't matter what you like. You like peanut butter on bell pepper? Good for you. Awesome. I don't know if it would be something that would sell mass market, but it doesn't matter. If you like it, you like it. When you're working with a business, though, you do need to bring that objectiveness. So it's not whether or not you like it, it's whether or not it's a product that is going to sell to your intended target market. Mm-hmm. And being aware also that you have biases going into everything, that's the first step. You need to know that you have a bias, but then working backwards and saying, okay, is this just my bias? Like, why do I have negative opinions of this? Is it just that? Or is it because objectively it actually does not work, right?
That makes sense. And thinking about, so coming to now, I know that you're doing your consulting work, so that's really exciting, but thinking to the future, what are you actively working on, or what topics or what skills are you thinking about as you move into the next phases of this exciting chapter for you?
That is a very exciting question. I'm relatively new into the consulting space, although I have a pretty darn good idea of my intended clients and what their needs are going to be. But for me, I know in tea, there's no such thing as knowing everything. And so going into this new phase, and even of course at DavidsTEA, it was continuous learning, but be open to continually learning, be open to knowing that you're not the smartest person in the room. Be aware that you can always learn from anyone and in any other sphere. So what I've really been putting most of my efforts in is just having conversations. I'm a networker at heart. I love getting to know and understanding people, their motivations, their mindset, their goals, the hurdles, the opportunities that they face, whether personally or in their business. That's something I'm very keen on knowing. And so I think the biggest thing for me is just, being a consultant. People think, oh, well, you're supposed to have all the answers. Absolutely not. No, you're not. And if someone says that they do, then they're either just very, very confident but kidding themselves, or they're maybe gonna overcharge you. So I don't know. I don't mean to belittle anyone, but it is true. I think you do need to go into it with an approach that you're really, you're there to learn and maybe help people get to conclusions. So I guess for me, it's going to be problem solving. That's the biggest skill that I need to go in and learn and understand more, and problem solving in ways that maybe other people can't see. That's probably the biggest skill that I'm gonna be focusing on.
I think it's a good one. I mean, it's an important skill. I think especially with how accessible knowledge is, being able to go through the information and actually figuring out what your problem is and trying to figure out what's actually going to help you solve those things. I know that's something that, as the listeners listen, a lot of employers, if someone's looking to get employed, that they're looking for, like, of course, having that knowledge, but actually able to make decisions is another change as well in solving those problems.
Yeah. Be okay to look at things from other angles, unconventional angles, thinking in ways that people don't normally think. Taking inspiration from other industries in the way that other industries are doing things, I think is another big one. Laser focusing and really closing your mind into just this tunnel vision might not be such a good approach. There's a lot to learn from the periphery.
For sure. Is the now when you're saying with the other industries, does that mean you look into other industries for inspiration?
Oh goodness, always, 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 always look. I read things about wine industry. I read things about coffee industry. I read things about the general CPG industry, whether it's snack, whether it's everything. Knowing what's happening on the food and beverage landscape is I think vital if you're going to be working in it in any capacity, because again, you can always learn from somewhere. So
absolutely. And for the individual, so I can tell, like you said, you're very much into networking, learning about people, all those types of things. How do you get connected with individuals? Do you just reach out on LinkedIn and say, hey, can I talk to you for 15 minutes? Is that your way of going about it, or is there other ways you do it?
Honestly, yeah, that's kind of the way that I've been going about doing it. But no, granted, I have a pretty good existing network just because I've been really lucky and fortunate to have the background of working with a corporation like DavidsTEA that is pretty well recognized. And so I was lucky to speak with a lot of people and get to know a lot of people. And that name did carry quite a bit of weight. But for me, it was reaching out and not just cold calling per se, but going into it trying to understand what is on the other end of the line. What is that person thinking, when I'm sending this message? Let's try to answer those questions. They're going to think, who am I? How long is this going to take? Do they have dates in mind or times in mind that they want to set? Why do they want to talk to me? Why are they reaching out? And I think answering all those questions right from the get-go is first and foremost a very good strategy, because then you don't necessarily have to answer those questions later on, and also that starts to build an element of trust. So actually, the ways that I've been going about my current networking activities, being a consultant, is learning. I just want to learn. So tell me about your business. Tell me about your goals, your opportunities. Tell me about your setbacks, your hurdles. Paint me a photo. Paint me a picture of those. Describe them to me. I just want to learn. So that's the way that I've been currently going about making those introductions or reaching out to people.
I love that. That's so good. I know as a podcaster, that's always reaching out to people, something that I have to do, and it can be challenging because I would, want to be genuine with every single connection coming up. I want to learn from them, but people are very friendly. Don't get me wrong, but you do have to be mindful of people's time and such. So.
Exactly. So yeah, those are just a few of the tips, but also just be genuine. Ultimately, when it comes down to it, somewhere, some way, we're all in the business of sales, and I have a very good sales mentor who taught me all through university as well. He was one of the investors in the coffee business that we started, but he was big in sales, and he just said the more that you can go in and preemptively answer the questions that are on people's mind right away, the better your outcome is going to be. And making sure that your agenda is a genuine want to not only learn, but also potentially provide solutions that fit with what can help further these people's goals. So, looking at sales from, I need to make quota, or I need to make this many connections, from how can I genuinely learn and help this other person, is a very different mindset, and I think sets you up pretty well for those conversations.
I like that. Well, I'm going to leave that there, because although I would love to keep talking, I know that we're getting close to the end of our discussion. But before I let you go, I did want to know, if we put it all together, what advice would you give to students looking to go into the food and beverage industry, or particularly the tea industry?
Particularly the tea industry, yes. First and foremost, that I think is going back right to the beginning, what my mentor said: the world doesn't need more tea geeks; it needs people who understand the business of tea. Excuse me. And so, going in with this understanding of what adjacent skills do I have that I can bring to the tea industry to help further that overall business, that is going to be a very important mindset, I think, going in, because again, you need people in data analytics, you need people in food science, you need people in quality control and safety and compliance, and you need all of these other skills because tea is indeed a food product. So that'd be the first piece of advice. The second piece of advice that I would give is definitely don't be afraid to reach out to people. So whether it's cold calling, sending them things on LinkedIn, I do find tea industry people are relatively friendly and pretty generous with their time, because there is this driving passion that they say, well, this person's interested in tea. Oh, great. I want to spend time and energy because that's only going to benefit us in the long run. So, of course, just like anything, you're going to, maybe not everyone is going to be so receptive, but I think you have a pretty darn good chance. Some of the best connections that I've made have been cold calling.
Okay. I love that. Well, to follow that up, and we'll finish it off, where can people find you and where can people find the book, Spill the Tea?
Yes, well, I am, as you're aware, incredibly active on LinkedIn. It's where I put most of my tea content, or at least tea industry content, I should say. And so you can find me, William Dietz, Dietz. And you can also find the page for my book is actually sirwilliamoftheleaf.com, which has all of the info about the book, where to buy, how to buy, also the origin story of the book and why it was written, what it was based off of, things like that. So there's some extra information on the website. Paperback copies right now, the best place available is Amazon. Which it's Amazon Global. I think you can get paperback pretty much everywhere. I also have an audiobook available on several outlets, but I will give a shout out to Spotify. The audiobook is available on Spotify. And again, the book is Spill the Tea, Unveiling the Mysteries of Blended, Flavored, and Herbal Teas is the title. You can also find me on Instagram. Sir Will O.T. Leaf is my handle.
Okay. Well, you got a lot of places where people can find you, and I think that's really important in the age of technology. But as an added thing as well, I will also make sure to link it all in the show notes to this episode. So once again, Billy, thank you so much for coming on the show. I love talking to a fellow tea enthusiast. I'm excited to go into my next steps about learning more. You encouraged me to go, you know what, the best thing is to just taste. So thanks for coming on the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Veronica. It's always wonderful to talk with other tea enthusiasts, and I hope that the info here can provide value to those looking to get into the food and beverage industry. Like I said, like you said, specifically the tea industry. At least for me, come on, we need you. I promise.
Well, that's why we're here, and we're here to share. So hopefully, we've done some conversion.
I love a good cup of tea, and I enjoy learning even more about it. If you want to learn more about Billy or purchase a copy of his book, Spill the Tea, then you can check out the links to our show in the description box below, or you can check out our show notes over on the website. Thank you so much, Billy, for coming on the show. Thank you to the listeners here for staying to the end. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. And thank you so much to my team over at FoodGrads for helping to make this show happen. And finally, thank you so much for Careers Now for sponsoring the show so we can help to bring conversations that are great, like the one you just heard, to your ears. So once again, thank you everyone else so much for listening, and we will see you next time.